Chapter 7 Westward Park. Saturday morning arrived, and Hugh rose early, excited about his first trip to Westward Park. Jumping from bed, he stuffed a jacket and an extra pair of socks in his backpack. Like a Boy Scout, he wanted to be prepared. Westward Park was unlike most amusement parks. It didn't have tidy landscapes or fancy rides. Instead, it had dirt roads, grassy plains, and horse-drawn buggies. It was more like a movie set than a theme park. It boasted an Indian village, a gold mine, and a quaint little town with the famous name of Dodge. Although the original Dodge was somewhere you wanted to leave, this Dodge was somewhere you wanted to be. To Hugh's delight, Nathan and Betsy arrived right on time, and after a polite round of good morning, everyone piled into Nathan's blue SUV. Mary sat in front, with Magic in back, nestled between Hugh and Betsy. Betsy, sporting her best cowgirl look, wore a red and white checkered bandana, knotted at the neck, and a grey felt cowboy hat. Hugh liked the hat, but he didn't want to show too much interest in it, or the girl. The long drive began awkwardly, in silence, with not a single person uttering a single word. "Someone, please say something," Hugh thought to himself as he stared out of the window. "Do you want to watch TV?" Betsy asked, as if reading his mind. Hugh leaned back in his seat. "How do we do that?" he asked curiously. "We have a video player. See?" she said, pulling down a screen from the ceiling. Hugh smiled. He'd never watched TV in a car before, and thought it was odd that he could watch TV in a car, but not at home. It should be the other way around, he thought. "Put your headphones on," Nathan said, peeking from the rear-view mirror. Betsy met her father's peek with a wink and pulled 2 sets of headphones from the back of the driver's seat. She handed Hugh his headphones and hung hers upside down from her ears. "What do you want to watch?" she asked. Hugh copied Betsy and hung his headphones upside down from his ears also. "I don't know," he said. "You decide." Betsy rummaged through a selection of videos and picked one about a sponge that lived under the sea. The cartoon relieved the awkwardness of riding in silence. Now even Mary and Nathan chuckled as Hugh and Betsy giggled out loud. Coiled in the seat, Magic also watched the cartoon, trying to make sense of all the nonsense. Watching the video helped the time pass. They finally arrived and came to a sprawling parking lot, with rows of vehicles spread out like a sea of shining metal. After parking, they boarded a stretch golf cart that took them to the sweeping entrance of Westward Park, where giant murals of the wild, wild West greeted them. They pushed through the busy turnstiles, where Nathan presented his executive pass. Entering the vast lobby, they came to a large domed room where swarms of cowboys, Indians, and regular folk crisscrossed in every direction. It was like the United Nations of the Old West. "So, how do you want to get to Dodge?" Nathan asked. "Stagecoach or train?" "Stagecoach, Daddy!" Betsy blurted, jumping up and down. "Why don't we let Mrs. Huxley or Hugh decide?" Nathan suggested. "You can call me Mary." "Okay, Mary, what do you like? Stagecoach or train?" "Oh, I don't know. I guess stagecoach is fine. Is that okay with you, Hugh?" "Yeah, it's okay with me," Hugh shouted, beaming broadly. "Stagecoach it is," said Nathan. They crossed to the far side of the depot, where stagecoaches waited like taxis at an airport. Nathan chose a fiery red stagecoach with bright yellow wheels called the Dodge Express. As they boarded, the driver held open the door and greeted them with a "Howdy." He tipped his cowboy hat and spat a dribble of chew next to his tattered boot. "Never hit 'em," he said. "Come close a few times." With everyone on board, the driver closed the door, hopped on top, and hard the horses into motion. The stage rolled off slowly at first, but soon roared across the plains, rocking rhythmically back and forth. "So, what do you think?" Nathan asked. Hugh's eyes were as big as saucers. "This is awesome," he said, glued to the window.
"What about you, Mary? You okay?"
"I think so," she said, sliding in her seat. "Look! Who's that over there?" Betsy asked, pointing out the window. "They're wearing masks!" Hugh shouted as the unknown riders began shooting at the stage.
"Hang on, everybody! Bandits!"
yelled the driver. Nathan eased back in his seat.
"Looks like we're being held up."
The bandits charged in with a blaze of gunfire, commandeering the lead horse, bringing the stage to a rapid stop.
"All right, you varmints, out of the stage with your hands up! Come on, get a move on!"
yelled one of the funny-talking bandits. At the mercy of the stick-up men, everyone filed out of the stage with their hands held high. They formed a ragged line and remained dead silent as the 4 masked banditos waved their guns, looking mean, ornery, and desperate.
"Throw down that strongbox," yelled a bandit, "or I'll put a bullet in you."
Hugh stared into the bandit's steely eyes. He must be the boss bandit, Hugh thought. Meanwhile, the stagecoach driver, savvy with these sorts of things, did as he was told. He untied the strongbox and threw it down into a cloud of dust.
"All right, you sodbusters," yelled the other bandit. "Get back on the stage and get out of here. And don't look back, or I'll put a bullet in you. Come on, get!"
While everyone shuffled back to the stagecoach, Hugh kept his eye on the bandit who threatened to put a bullet in someone. He must be the meanest one of the bunch, Hugh suspected. With everyone on board, the bandits hollered, shouted, and shot their guns recklessly into the air. The stagecoach driver wasted no time with these hooligans. He quickly got the stage rolling and left the mangy bandits to their gold bullion booty. Looking out the window, Hugh watched as the crime scene receded into the horizon. "Mom, did you see that?" he asked. "Yes, Hugh, I saw that." Betsy slouched in her seat and crossed her arms. "I wasn't afraid of those bandits."
"Oh, I sure was," said Nathan. "We're lucky we got away with our lives."
Nathan and Mary shared a smile.
"River crossing!"
the stagecoach driver yelled. "What does that mean?" Mary asked, suddenly concerned.
"It means we might have to pick up our feet," said Nathan.
"Pick up our feet?" Mary questioned. "Surely we're not going through a river."
"I think we are," said Nathan, amused.
Everyone but Nathan crowded the windows to look outside.
"All right!"
Hugh whooped.
"Daddy, I can't get my outfit wet,"
said Betsy, worried. "I don't think it'll be quite that bad," said Nathan. Betsy wasn't reassured. She brought her feet up and pulled Magic close to her as the stage started angling down into the river, crunching over rocks. Crossing the shallow river, the water never rose above the bottom of the stage. They made it safely to the other side, completely dry, to Betsy's relief. She wasn't a fan of getting wet. Farther down the road, they passed Boot Hill Cemetery, where, in a patch of unkempt grass, Hugh saw a casket sticking halfway out of the ground. He made a mental note not to visit. The dead needed their rest. Arriving at the outskirts of Dodge, Hugh stuck his head out of the window, trying to see everything there was to see. Betsy, meanwhile, was just as wide-eyed as Hugh as she hung halfway out the other window. Magic, on the other hand, wasn't much excited at all by the human hoopla. The town of Dodge buzzed with busy commotion. There were people walking and riding on horses, going in all directions. A cavalry platoon even paraded through town, 2 by 2. There were also many odd sorts loitering about, leaning against buildings, spitting chewing tobacco while they eyed the bustle of the street. The townfolk of Dodge dressed in a variety of styles, from common normal to full-blown cowboy attire. A few, like Betsy, were dressed somewhere in between. Passing many shops and numerous eateries, the stage whoaed to a stop in front of a crowded depot. The driver hopped down from the stage and opened the door.
"Sorry about the hold-up," he said. "Bandits, kind of a problem round these parts, but you'll be safe here. The cavalry patrols dodge pretty good, and we've got a dandy of a sheriff."
"I'm not afraid of any bandits,"
Betsy boasted, stepping off the stage. The driver tipped his hat back with 2 fingers.
"You must be one tough little hombre, miss," he said, "because I sure wouldn't want to tangle with those roughneck outlaws."
"Thanks for your advice, kind sir," said Nathan. The driver dipped his head politely and crawled back on top of the stagecoach. "Hugh, make sure you hang on to Magic's leash," Mary said as a clump of people pushed by.
"I don't know about everybody else,"
Nathan said, "but I'm mighty thirsty. Why don't we go to the Cowpoke Saloon and have some drinks?" Mary gaped. "We can't take the kids to a saloon?" Nathan chuckled. "It's okay. They don't sell alcohol," he explained. "The saloon is really a restaurant." Mary blushed, slightly embarrassed. They jostled through the crowd, Hugh wishing for more eyes, maybe at the back of his head, so he could see everything there was to see. Across the street, he saw a horse and buggy for hire. He hoped for a ride later. They soon passed the sheriff's office. Hugh peeked inside through the barred window. To his disappointment, there wasn't a single prisoner locked up. Maybe the sheriff was out, corralling some outlaws. A town like Dodge would surely have a prisoner or 2, sooner or later. The bandits came to mind. When they reached the entrance of the Cowpoke Saloon, gunfire rang from somewhere up or down the street. The town's bustle suddenly stopped while everyone twisted and turned, trying to locate the source of the shots. Then, charging down Front Street came 6 rowdy cowboys, hooting, hollering and shooting their guns into the air, scattering the townfolk off the street. Hugh smiled. Now, there were some outlaws for the jail. "We'd better get inside where it's safe," said Nathan, ushering everyone into the saloon. They sat at a square table next to a player piano that played Western favourites. Hugh didn't recognise any of the songs and wondered how they could be anyone's favourites.
"Howdy, folks. What'll you have?"
asked the moustached waiter.
"If I may, Mary," Nathan said, "we'll have 4 sarsaparillas and a bowl of your best drinking water for our dog." "Very well," said the waiter. 4 sarsaparillas and a bowl of our best drinking water coming up. Will you need a spittoon, sir?"
"A spittoon?" Mary asked.
"No," said Nathan. "We don't need a spittoon, unless you need one, Hugh."
"Thanks, Mr. Edwards. I don't need one," said Hugh. "I swallow mine."
"Hugh?" Mary said, giggling with Betsy. Nathan leaned close to Hugh. "I swallow mine too," he said.
"Ew, Daddy,"
Betsy said, making a face. After finishing their tasty brew, they left the sorrowfully un-rowdy saloon and went to the Dodge Mercantile, a general store. Packed with cowboy stuff, from bad guy black cowboy hats to good guy white cowboy boots, the store was overflowing with jeans, shirts, vests, belts, and spurs, all sporting Western themes. There was everything a real cowboy, or not-so-real cowboy, could want or have. On the back wall, Hugh noticed an impressive assortment of bullwhips. He and Magic moseyed over for a closer look. Lined on rows of shelves were bullwhips of every kind. Hugh picked one up, labelled the Trail Boss. It had a maroon leather grip and a 10-foot tail. The new woven leather crackled in his hand. A mighty fine bullwhip, he thought. He recalled a western where a cowboy practiced with a bullwhip. The cowboy had circled the whip over his head and lashed it out at tin cans, then snapped it back with a sharp crack. "What are you doing?" Betsy asked suddenly from behind him. Startled, Hugh spun around and slipped the bullwhip behind his back. Nothing," he said awkwardly. "Do you even know how to use that?" she asked, trying to spy behind him. "Use what?" Hugh asked. "That whip, behind your back. I saw you fingering it." "I wasn't fingering it. I was just looking at it. What do you care anyway?" "Geez Louise, I was just asking. You don't get along well with other people, do you?"
Yes, I do, Hugh said. It's just you snuck up on me. So, she said, do you know how to use that or not? Hugh mentally replayed the movie scene. You just whirl it around over your head, like this, he said, motioning with his arm. And then you lash it out and snap it back. That's all. Betsy snapped out her hand. Let me try, she said. Hugh smirked. He knew girls didn't know how to use a bullwhip, but he thought it would be funny to see her try. He handed her the whip and moved back out of the way with magic. Betsy leered at Hugh. What are you grinning about? She asked, half irritated. Hugh shook his head vigorously. Nothing at all, he said, puckering his lips, trying not to smile. Betsy, however, could still see he was. She snugged her cowboy hat and circled the whip over her head as Hugh had shown. She lashed it out in front of her and snapped it back with a loud crack. Hugh's smirk instantly vanished from his face, replaced by dumbfoundedness. How in the world had she done that? Betsy bounced up and down. I'm a regular Calamity Jane, don't you think? She asked. Hugh didn't know what to say other than, That's okay, for a girl. But by Betsy's expression, that wasn't what she expected to hear. She went from a big, full smile to a small, tight frown. Do you think you can do better? She asked, putting hands on her hips. Hugh was unsure how to answer. His mind was still clogged. Well, she asked, do you? Hugh folded his arms. I taught you, didn't I? He blurted out, hoping that was the last word on the subject. Yet it wasn't. I don't think you can, Betsy said. You need to prove it. Betsy's frown found itself on Hugh's face. It seemed there was no getting out of this. How hard could it be, anyway? She did it, and she was just a girl. He took the whip from Betsy and stepped aside. He thought it best if he did it fast. That's how he remembered the cowboy doing it in the Western. He circled the whip over his head, lashed it out, and jerked it back. Perfect, he thought, until the clang of pots and pans crashing onto the floor rang like 1,000 gongs. Bent at the waist, Betsy held her stomach, laughing hysterically. The loud commotion drew unwanted attention. Even now, someone was tapping Hugh's shoulder. I'm so sorry, Hugh said, turning around while Betsy continued to laugh uncontrollably. Miss, this is not funny, the male clerk said sternly. Betsy instantly stopped laughing and popped out her chin. Hey, I didn't do it, she shouted. I'm innocent. Mary and Nathan came running to the commotion. What happened? Mary asked, staring at the pots and pans scattered on the floor. It's my fault, Hugh admitted. I knocked the pots down. You need to be more careful, the clerk said, shaking his finger. No, young man, Nathan interrupted. You need to secure those pots better. If this boy had been hurt, I'm sure your employer would not have been pleased. Yes, of course. You're absolutely right, sir, the clerk said, changing his retail tone. He turned to Hugh. I'm sorry, son. You okay? I'm all right, Hugh said, his head down, embarrassed by the crowd that had gathered. They filled their bellies on the lunch special, the Festus burger, named after a TV character that Hugh had never heard of. The burger was, nevertheless, highly pleasing, no matter whose name was on it. So, Hugh, how do you like Westward Park so far? Asked Nathan. I like it just fine, said Hugh. It's like being in a Western, except without John Wayne. Nathan laughed. I guess it is. It's very nice, Mary added. Thank you for inviting us. I'm happy to have offered, said Nathan. It's been our pleasure, right, Betsy? Right, Daddy, Betsy said, taking a bite of her French fry. Can we go to the gold mine now? Yeah, Mom, can we? Hugh asked, as he secretly fed Magic under the table. Mary, I have to go to the director's office, Nathan said. It shouldn't take long. You guys go ahead. I'll catch up later. We can take the next stage to the gold mine. It should be coming soon, Betsy said.
Mary looked at the kids. "Why don't you two go without me, if that's okay with you, Nathan?" Mary asked. Nathan nodded. "That's fine. Just be careful and stay out of trouble," he said, pointing at Betsy. Betsy dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "Daddy will be okay. You know me." Nathan shook his head. "Yeah, I know you. That's why I said stay out of trouble." "Daddy," Betsy whined. "You be careful too," Mary told Hugh. "I will. But what are you going to do, Mom?" "I'm going to go to Front Street. There are some shops I want to visit." "All right. Everything is settled," said Nathan. "I'll meet everyone later." Hugh, Betsy, and Magic waited at the railroad crossing for the next stage to the Eureka gold mine. "I wanted a dog," Betsy said, stroking Magic's head, "but there's no one to watch it while I'm at school." "Couldn't your mom watch it?" Hugh asked. "She passed away 2 years ago. She had cancer." "Oh, I'm sorry." "That's okay," Betsy said. "It wasn't your fault." "What happened to your father?" "He got bit by a snake. They said that it must have been someone's pet, 'cause that kind of snake didn't come from around here." "Hey, look over there," Betsy said, pointing. "There's a smashed penny on the tracks. Get it for me. It will give us good luck." Hugh wondered how a smashed penny could be good luck. After all, luck hadn't been good to it. Hugh nonetheless went to retrieve the penny, but as he picked it up, a twinkle to his right caught his eye. It came from a triangular rock with a hole perfectly through its centre. Now there was a lucky rock. "Give it to me," Betsy commanded, holding out her hand. Hugh closed his hand around the penny, making Betsy frown. He laughed and gave her the worthless item. "What's that you got?" she asked. "It's a peephole rock," he said, proudly holding it up. "What good is a rock?" she asked, making a face. "It's a good luck rock." "How can a rock be good luck?" "I don't know. How can a smashed penny be good luck?" Magic barked at the arriving stage.
"Eureka Gold Mine!" the burly driver yelled. "Is that where you're all headed?"
"Yes, sir," Hugh answered politely. The driver smiled, exposing a pair of missing teeth, neither one next to the other.
"Won't take long," he said. "It ain't far. Get on in. Got a schedule to keep. Ain't no time for lollygagging."
Hugh was unsure what lollygagging was, but he certainly didn't want to be accused of it. The stage left the limits of Dodge and entered the grassy plains of Westward Park. The Snake River, which they had crossed earlier, was off to the far left. Hugh wondered why they called the river the Snake River. There were two possibilities. One, because it snaked through the park, or two, because it was filled with snakes. Just to be on the safe side, he would avoid it at all cost. When they arrived at the Eureka gold mine camp, Hugh stepped off the stage right into a puddle of mud. He turned to warn Betsy, but it was too late. She also found it. She glared at him as if he had masterminded the whole thing. It seemed that neither the smashed penny nor the peephole rock were much for good luck. The run-down mining camp, pieced together from rotted canvas and old barnwood, was home to a horde of tattered prospectors, leading their pack mules around, laden with mining tools and assorted junk. "Come on," Betsy said, leading the way. "Where are we going?" "Come on, you'll see." Hugh released Magic from his leash. "Come on, boy," Hugh said. "Let's see if we can find some gold." Betsy spun around and skipped backwards. "There's no gold here," she said. "It's all fake. That's why they call it fool's gold." "Well, there might be some gold here," Hugh said. "Ain't that right, Magic?" "What does he know anyway?" Betsy said. "He's a dog, and everybody knows dogs can't smell gold. He'd be worth $1 million if he could." Hugh had never heard of a dog that could smell gold, so Betsy might be right. Nevertheless, if he could find some fool's gold, he could fool his cousin, Bobby. Betsy paused at the entrance to the mine. "See that handcar?" she said. "We're going to take it into the mine." Hugh stared at the handcar and then into the mine's dark, gloomy tunnel. "Come on," Betsy said, skipping ahead. "You know how to work a handcar, don't you?" Hugh followed behind her. "You just push up and down on those bars, right?" "Yeah, that's right." They stepped up onto the handcar, Magic beside Betsy at the rear and Hugh at the front, facing backward. Within a moment, they had the handcar rolling deeper into the mine. "Come on," Betsy said. "Let's make it go fast." "No," Hugh shouted. "I can't see where I'm going." "You can come back here. Or are you afraid of a girl?" Although Hugh wasn't afraid of her, she did make him nervous. He, nonetheless, traded places with Magic. "Okay, let's go fast," Betsy said eagerly. Against his better judgment, Hugh helped her to get the handcar to go faster. Torches began flying by as the handcar picked up more speed, its handle whipping up and down more violently. Hugh and Betsy struggled to hold on. Okay, it's too fast," Betsy screamed, her hand suddenly flying off the handle. "Hugh, do something!" Hugh tried to slow the handcar, but his arms were flapping wildly. He finally lost his grip on the handle. The handcar was now like a runaway train. It bounced side to side, its wheels screeching as it rapidly approached a dead man's curve. Moving too fast, the handcar careened into the curve, sparks shooting off its screeching wheels. The handcar finally lost its footing and came off the tracks, flying toward the cavern wall. Hugh clenched his eyes, his mind filling with images of a gruesome death. He flew through the air for what seemed an eternity, the wind rushing past his face. Why was it taking forever to be smashed against the wall? Any second now, he would be splattered like a bug against a car windshield. Did he dare open his eyes and catch his moment of death? Moments earlier, when Hugh had clenched his eyes, he missed the final second when Magic leapt from the airborne handcar straight into the cavern wall. At last, Hugh couldn't wait any longer. He opened his eyes to witness his death, but instead, his eyes were splashed shut by a wall of water. He tumbled into the swirling fluid, head over heels. Soon pain shot through his chest. He needed to breathe. He opened his eyes, catching a glimmer of light. He swam desperately towards it, thinking about Betsy and Magic. No, he told himself. He couldn't think about them now. He had to save himself before he could save anyone else. He broke through the water's surface, air rushing into his lungs, relieving the pain in his chest. Breathing heavily, his head barely above water, he heard a familiar bark and swam toward it, dragging himself from the water.